All right, y'all, welcome to the show. I got a sweet one for you today. So, Donald Trump has been relentlessly attacking Jack Smith, the prosecutor, and the judge in that case. And he is honestly at this point just begging for them to put his ass behind bars and revoke his pretrial release. This is a wild, wild situation. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the fact that now there's a special prosecutor who's been appointed to investigate Hunter Biden, which means it's much more likely he gets more serious charges and his ass might end up behind bars too. So we'll talk about that. We have Marianne Williamson running circles around Bill Maher, honestly, and sort of exposing that he used to be a lot better and a lot different. I mean, he was never great, but he certainly has come a long way from like 2015, 2016 Bill Maher, who supports Bernie Sanders. He's kind of riding the wave of the internet in its rightward shift. So she does a great job of like holding a mirror up to him and sort of exposing him for what he's become. And then we'll also talk about Chris Christie. This is the first time I've ever heard a Republican bring this up, so it's incredibly noteworthy. But he talks about Hunter Biden, and he's like, yeah, we can have a conversation about Hunter Biden. But don't forget, Jared Kushner took $2 billion from Saudi Arabia, so they're guilty of the same kind of corruption, if not worse, to be honest. And then we have some cult-like stuff on, I believe it's Right Side Broadcasting. They have gone full insane religious fundamentalist weirdos around Trump. Seems like they're actually building a religion around this man, and they think that they're a so-called news network. Anyway, so let's go ahead and dive into it now. Everybody do me a big favor before we start here. Click like, click subscribe, all that fun stuff. Look, I hate to report this news to you all, but it appears like my wife will pass me in subs. It looks like it's inevitable. And I say that because even though I think they're below me at this very second, they're gaining about 20,000 subscribers a month. And my sorry ass is only gaining about 5,000 subscribers a month. And I desperately wanted to stay ahead of my wife in subscribers so I can have bragging rights. But it looks like she's going to be the one with bragging rights, which is honestly devastating to my ego. So do me a big favor, click that subscribe button, click that bell icon so you get a notification every single time a video drops. And of course, much love to everybody who supports this show on Patreon and supports Crystal Kyle and Friends on Substack. By the way, we had a great debate last week. We debated Michael Tracy on the Trump indictments. Definitely go check that out if you haven't yet. It was very heated, it was very passionate, but it was also very substantive. All right, so without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into it. So what's kind of amazing about Trump is that even though he's under 85 indictments, there's like 125 criminal charges, this guy does not stop. He will not stop. It's can't stop, won't stop. So he continues to attack the judge, even though he was directly ordered not to do that as a condition of his pretrial release. He continues to attack Jack Smith, even though he was directly ordered not to do that as a condition of his pretrial release. And then at the same time, he's going to the Iowa State Fair, and we're getting moments like this with Matt Gaetz. Listen.
I cannot stand these people that are destroying our country, that are opening our borders, that are weaponizing our federal law enforcement against patriotic Americans who love this nation as we should. We are having a great time at the fair. We love standing with you, but we know that only through force do we make any change in a corrupt town like Washington, D.C. And so to all my friends here in Iowa, when you see them come for this man, know that they are coming for our movement, and they are coming for all of us. And as hard as you see him work, I need you working 10 times harder, 100 times harder. We're going to win Iowa. We're going to march for the nomination, and we're going to save the greatest country in town.
So that may have been a little bit hard to hear, but what he's saying is only through force do we make real change. Now, if I was standing next to a guy who's under indictment for January 6th related stuff, I wouldn't say that. And if I was Trump, I wouldn't stand there and casually accept it, nod along. There's no bottom, man. There's no bottom. We just came off of a situation where there was violence, where there was a riot, where there was force used. And they're out there saying, force is the answer. Let's use force. I think it's a foregone conclusion at this point that if Trump loses, I don't think he's going to go peacefully into the night. If he wins the primary and then loses the general, he's going to say he won the general. If he loses the primary, he's going to say he won the primary. And if he wins both, he, of course, is president for 4 more years, and then we're all in a devastatingly bad situation. So I got more for you. This is quite an ominous, cryptic moment where a reporter gets Trump's ear for a second, and he says, "Did you intend to overturn the 2020 election?" And then here is his reaction.
Did you intend to overturn the 2020 election?
You know the answer.
President Trump, did you intend to overturn the 2020 election?
You know the answer.
You know the answer. Yeah, I think we do know the answer. I think we do know the answer. Now, if I'm being overly, unnecessarily, honestly, absurdly kind, then you could interpret what he's saying as like, you know the answer. Of course I didn't. Crooked Joe Biden was the one who tried to steal the election, who tried to overturn the election. But I think, to me, it feels like a little bit of a wink and a nod. And, I mean, obviously, right? Don't be ridiculous. Of course I tried to overturn the results of the election. So, look, I have to say, man, given the totality of what's happened since his pretrial release, I said it once, I'll say it again. If anybody else acted the way this guy was acting, they would be locked up before the trial. Before the trial. But since it's a former president, since we've never been here in this situation, since he's running for office, you know, you worry. It's like, do they have the cojones to do it? And then obviously, if they do the pretrial detention, then the right will melt down and act like it was totally unfounded and totally unjustified, and there's no way you can or should do this. But I have to say, based on everything I've seen, that's just something I don't agree with, right? If you're given clear terms for your release, now you can make some sort of abstract philosophical argument that, you know, pretrial release terms by their very nature are anti-First Amendment and anti-free speech. And you can make an argument against, you know, what's called a gag order. Are any and all gag orders unconstitutional? If you want to make that high-minded philosophical argument, I'm sure there's some semblance of a case there. But, you know, the fact of the matter is there probably is already a bunch of case law that has upheld the constitutionality of situations like this. Like I told you guys this before, but when I was on a jury for a criminal trial, they impressed upon us in no uncertain terms, you can't say anything to the media. You can't say anything to your friends or family. Anything that happens in this courtroom stays in this courtroom. And, you know, obviously the first thing I think of is like, well, hold on, don't I have like free speech rights? You know, can I talk about whatever the hell I want to talk about, right? But it was impressed upon me that this is just part and parcel of the process. Now, again, if you want to make a high-minded argument, none of that's allowed, okay, we can have that conversation. But at the same time, the rules of the road as they exist currently are that in that situation, I wasn't allowed to talk to the media. I wasn't allowed to talk to my friends and family about the case until after the trial was done. And there are rules and regulations and terms around pretrial release. And he is basically just begging them at this point, put me behind bars before the trial. So, what a terrible situation. Why don't you go out there and do 7 more rallies and call for more force and more violence? And why don't you wink and nod and talk about how you wanted to overturn the election yet again? Why don't you do that? Why don't you just keep daring these people? Personally going after Jack Smith, personally going after the judge, quoting the judge to use it as like, here's evidence that she's biased against me, when the quote is just talking about people on January 6th who committed actual violent crimes and saying, hey man, these people are loyal to one person over the law and over the Constitution. That was a factual statement, and he's bringing it up to attack the judge as if it makes her unreasonable. No, it makes you unreasonable with your 1 a.m. in the morning tweets when you're probably on the toilet taking a shit. So anyway, I digress, but it is wild, man. In this situation, could you imagine you or your allies basically calling for violence yet again? We are way, way beyond the pale now. Hey, y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop, and watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.